Hi everyone, it's your girl Mathilda, obviously, and today we're actually going to talk about something that I've received a lot of questions about, and it's my coming out story. Before we get into the video, don't forget to follow me on my socials, especially Instagram, because I'm most active on my Instagram. But yes, let's get into the video. So as you all know, I'm transgender, and I realized I was transgender when I was around 15 years old. However, I kind of thought something, was wrong when I was around 2 to 3 years old, just because I started thinking about, genders and stuff like that, which is not, an ordinary thing to think about when you're that age. I also, wanted girly toys, toys that are traditionally made for females. My family didn't really, care about that stuff. Like here in Sweden, we're kind of open-minded and, toys are just toys. Like there are no labels on toys. I wanted Barbies and stuff like that, and I occasionally, dressed up in dresses and stuff. Nothing wrong with that either. It wasn't around until I was 6 years old when I really started thinking about gender, because I started going to school and I got this intense jealousy towards all the other girls, like how they could dress, how they could speak, and how everything about them. That wasn't, normal feelings for a 6-year-old to have. So I thought a lot about gender and who I was, basically. However, I didn't tell anyone about these feelings I had, just because even though I was young, I kind of realized it was wrong to feel like this. I was born in a male body, so I knew that I was supposed to, be like an ordinary boy. However, I didn't identify with the other boys, so I started, hanging out with the girls instead. And I kind of became a very feminine boy, just because I was a girl trapped in a, boy body. When I started going into puberty, I was so unhappy. And I couldn't even, see myself in the mirror. And I didn't understand why I felt like that, just because this was, 10 years ago, and it wasn't as open as it is today. So I wasn't even aware that you could be transgender, and that is just really weird. But when I was 15 years old, I watched a program, a TV show, and it was about being transgender. And when I watched it, I was like, oh my god, that's me. That's me. And it was almost like I started laughing, just because how could I have been transgender all my life and I didn't even realize it? And it was just surreal. I just realized it, and I knew that I was transgender because all of the feelings I've ever had was explained, on this TV show. So after the program ended, I went downstairs and I just told my mom right away. And I know that a lot of people don't do that. I know that a lot of people, wait and really think about it. However, I was so sure that I was transgender, and my mom had always been, open-minded. And so I just told her right away, straight away, I told her. And I just basically said, if you don't help me, I will help myself. I mean, I think she was kind of shocked, She was sitting there on the couch and I just told her that I was transgender out of the blue, basically. But she helped me, straight away. She called a psychiatrist for me, because here in Sweden you need to go through this process that can take years to even, start going on hormones, because we need to be sure that you're actually transgender, so that people don't detransitions. However, she called a psychologist for me, and I started talking to them. I started going to the psychologist once a week before they accepted me further into, the process. The process is very complex here in Sweden. It can take up to, 4 or 5 years before everything is completed. However, when I started going to the psychologist, my mom was the only one who knew. I didn't tell anyone else, and I didn't tell anyone until 1 year in or something like that, just because I was terrified of telling people. I was so scared. And I know that I told my mom straight away. It's just because you need to have a guardian to help you through this process. So I needed to tell someone, and my mom was the first person I just wanted to tell. However, none of my siblings or friends or anyone did it. They didn't know that I was transgender, and I wanted to keep it that way, just because I was just so scared. I was actually really terrified, and I didn't even wanna, say the words that I was transgender, just because it was a really big deal. I mean, I realized I was transgender, and straight away I was thrown into this process. I wanted it to be, that way, but it was just a lot to take in. So I didn't wanna bring someone else into the process as well. So I just kept it between my mom and I. It wasn't until 1 or 2 years in that I started to tell my siblings, and then I started to tell my friends. And before I told my friends, I was so scared. Like every time I tried to tell them, I just choked. I started to shake and almost like cry just because it was so hard to utter the words. I didn't want to say it, but my closest friends was obviously the people I told it first. And if you've seen my, transphobic friend story time, you know that some of my friends didn't react very, good. However, most of them reacted very good. Like, I had a group of, girlfriends, and I sit down with them and I just I've been going to a psychologist just because I'm transgender and I want to become a girl. That's basically what I said. Some of them were more shocked than others just because I was a very feminine boy and I talked a lot about, girl issues and stuff like that. So some of them, I think, kind of knew, especially those who had been with me for a lot of years, just because when I was younger, I liked, to be in dresses and stuff like that. But when I got older, I stopped doing that just because it was wrong in the, social norms. They accepted me and, it was amazing. The more people I told, the easier it got. I just told my, closest friends. I didn't want to tell anyone else. And as I said, a few people didn't react very, good. However, if a person react poorly to you being your true self, toss them aside, don't put your energy in them, because you're going to go through something, very big. You're going to change your gender and you don't need these energy stealers. I mean, you need to be aware that people are going to be shocked. You can just toss everyone aside just because they're shocked. And it can take a while for them to, wrap their head around the idea of you, changing or transitioning into your true self. Be patient. However, if they start being really mean to you or talk behind your back, then they're nothing to have. Please be patient with them because it can take a while for them to, wrap their head around the whole idea. I told my friends and most of them reacted very nicely. And my siblings, they reacted, good as well. They were shocked, as I said. Some of them, they didn't have trouble with the idea. They just were kind of shocked. And a lot of my younger siblings, they had always had a, big brother. However, realized that they were getting a big sister instead. So, it's kind of things like that. You need to be aware that people don't know your true self because your true self has been, locked inside and it's finally breaking free, but people haven't seen. I am the same person as I was before. However, I'm more of me, basically. So that's what I mean. People don't really know who you are before you transition into your true self. So, however, all of them were, super kind and super supportive. They all wanted me to be happy and they didn't have a problem with it at all. They even went to my psychologist meetings with me to, meet the psychologist and everything like that. So they were really happy for me. They knew that I was unhappy, but they didn't know why. And now they knew. So they wanted me to, be my true self. However, by this point, I hadn't actually told my dad yet. And it wasn't because I thought that he would disapprove or because he was, mean or anything like that. My family has always been very open-minded. And I was just scared of telling my dad just because he had 3 daughters already. He only had 1 son. I wasn't a son, but for him I was. And I was just scared of telling him. I was scared of, taking his only son away from him. And I know it's stupid, but I was just scared of the whole idea of me telling him. However, the longer in the process I got, I needed to tell him. So when I went to his house, I just sat down with him and I started shaking and I was just so scared. He just what is going on right now? I started telling him that I was going to change and that I was transgender and that I really wanted to be a girl. And I said that I didn't want to take his only son away from him. And he just looked at me and he kind of started laughing a little, and I was just like, okay, what? And he said like, Emily is more of a son to me than you are. And that was kind of a joke because my big sister, she had, you know, played soccer and stuff like that, and I had been in gymnastics and dance, so he meant that she was, you know, more a traditional boy than I was. And I know that sounds weird, but it was like a joke between us, and it just felt so amazing that that was his reaction. Like he didn't care. He just wanted me to be happy, and he started telling me that people will be really mean, but he will support me through everything. Yeah, and we told my stepmom together. Like, unfortunately, my dad passed away a year later, and he didn't see me become Mathilda, but I knew that he supported me, and I knew that he wanted me to be happy, so I'm very glad that I got to tell him before he passed away, just because, like, yeah, that meant a lot to me. Maybe like 2 to 3 years into the process, right before I was going to start going on hormone replacement therapy, I hadn't told my grandparents yet, just because like they're the older generation. When my dad passed away, he had told me that he wanted to be with me when we told my grandparents. He passed away before we got to tell them together, so I was just really nervous because it felt like they wouldn't accept me, just because like he told me that he wanted to be there, so it kind of felt like he wanted to be there to, you know, protect me from them. So me and my sister, we met up with my grandpa. She was there instead of my dad, and I was so nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I thought that he would disapprove. I thought that he would not accept me, and he's like one of the kindest people I know. Like, I don't know why I thought that, but I was just very scared of telling him. We sat down and he said like, I know that you've been going to a psychologist. Are you okay? Because he thought that I was sick. He thought that I was going to a psychologist because I was sick. You know, as my father was sick, and he thought that I was sick as well. So he was really, really scared of me being sick. And I told him that I've been going to a psychologist because I was transgender. Like, he had the biggest smile on his face, and he said that he was so relieved. Like, he didn't say anything more than he was relieved that I was just becoming my true self and not that I was sick. And that made me realize that your parents and relatives should support you, because everything could be so much worse. I mean, you're just becoming your true self. You're not dying, you're not sick. He just told me that he was relieved and he supported me. He was just happy that I wasn't sick. So yeah, we told my grandmother, and he has always been so supportive. Like my grandpa and my grandma, they've been really there for me. And now I've been living as Mathilda for around 6 years, 7 years. I'm not entirely sure. I don't have a, you know, specific date. Most of the people from my family and my friends has been really supportive, and they've been behind me through this like whole process. I'm so thankful for them to, you know, be there for me. However, as I said, there's been, you know, some friends that, you know, talked about me behind my back and did really mean things. However, like, everyone from my family supported me, and I think that was everything for this, you know, story. Yeah, if there's anything else you're wondering about, you can just like comment below. And thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!